Bring it.
Yo,
bring it.
Hey guys, welcome. Tampa Fishing Outfitters Live Fishing Report. Myself, Captain Travis in the studio, Captain James, Captain Rick, and the Snow Princess, Captain Jason, is up in Colorado on the slopes doing the snowboarding deal. So
Gosh,
I
hope he don't get hurt.
No, I hope he don't get hurt, man.
Yeah, me too.
Because we'll have to hear about it all through spring.
At his age,
yes,
it's
yes.
tricky.
And Jason's not, just to be perfectly honest, he's not the most graceful person.
No.
He's never been.
So,
I mean,
he don't even need skis.
I didn't know him in the younger days. But,
but anyway, guys, well, we're here. We appreciate you joining us for another hour of Fish Talk. We're going to talk a little bit about what's been going on in Tampa Bay. Specifically tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about the early spring bite that we've had.
Yeah.
Maybe talk a little bit about the bait situation, what species, what areas we've been targeting, and
springtime tactics.
Sort of, how everything's been folding out. But other than that, we got some interesting trivia. Rick's got some trivia for us.
It's a real short, sweet trivia question tonight.
That's how we like it.
Yeah.
So, but other than that, guys, as always, please like and share the show. That always helps. We try to grow the audience each week and hope that we can bring you guys something that's entertaining and brings you back each week to find something new. So, and if you've got a question, always feel free to fire it off. We'll do our best to scroll through there and get them answered throughout the show. But I'll go ahead and start. Actually, James, you start. You fished today. I've been fishing, but I was off today. So why don't you tell us today what you saw out there?
Yeah,
Bubba?
I mean, I fished a lot the last few days, and I would say it's pretty similar. I've been fishing out of like kind of the South St. Pete area around the fort and Pinellas Point, stuff like that, and kind of what my routine's been, I guess, for the last 3 or 4 days is, you got a real low tide in the morning.
Yep.
And you're kind of following that tide in, but I'll tell you the pothole fishing right now. I mean, if you've got some real shallow flats where you're kind of sneaking your boat up on, and you can get in these potholes that are 2 to 4 feet.
Right.
I mean, they're just loaded with fish.
Yeah.
It's honestly, if I chose to do it, there's a few that we could have just kept our power poles down and ran a 4-hour trip and never left the pothole. But not to beat the fish up and keep things interesting for the clients. We're moving around, but that's really been the tactic for me first thing in the morning. So kind of starting the first half that way, and then once that tide gets up a little higher and it lets those fish spread out a little bit, getting up closer to the trees or finding these oyster bars that.
Well, y'all had a little more water over there than we've had on the east side.
Yeah, I guess with that tide or with that wind, Tuesday, yeah, sure.
And today too, the wind was blowing out of the.
That did push some water in. That really made for a good.
Because you wasn't getting no potholes first thing this morning.
No, probably not where you are. No.
Guarantee it.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I hear you.
Airboating.
Even then, I don't know. I know how that place gets, but yeah. And then what's nice is you can go and kind of beat some bushes down with these warmer temps. You're seeing, and I know we're going to talk about it. We're seeing some of these snook and some of these redfish kind of get in that pattern where that water starts getting up around 75, 76. They're starting to look for a little bit of shade, a little bit of relief. So it's been nice. I'll say that it's been nice in late February or mid-February to go and do those things and have some quality bite.
For sure.
Yep.
Thanks, James. We appreciate you watching up in the Panhandle, brother. If you got a fishing report from up there, fire it off, man. I'm sure there's several of you that watch from up north, and we'd love to have you tell us what's going on up there. I'm seeing the same thing, James. The one thing that I'll kind of add to what you said is, not only are the fish sort of feeding like spring, but they're actually starting to move into some of those springtime areas.
Right.
Rick and I were talking on the way up. One of the areas that I've been fishing here recently, the fish are literally moving, week to week, staging themselves out, kind of moving out towards the flats. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of that has to do with water temperature, but I think a lot of it also has to do with the tides. Some of the tides that we had last week were really high, coming off that on this full moon, coming off of it now. But we had some really good flood tides, and I think it allowed some of those fish to kind of move up into some areas that 2 weeks ago they weren't sitting in there.
Right.
Maybe it was water temperature, maybe it was tide, but these fish are definitely starting to move out. And I've been fishing, I'd say half of my spring stuff and then half of my wintertime stuff. There's still fish there, but the bigger aggregations, the bigger schools of snook in particular, are definitely working their way out towards the flats. And in a few weeks, hopefully, what will happen is, these game fish that are moving out of the, backcountry bays and creeks and rivers are going to, headbutt the bait moving back on the flat.
Sure.
And, the stuff that we're talking about now in the backcountry creeks and ponds and river systems, that's all going to be potholes and mangrove shorelines and islands and troughs and grass flats and things like that, in the weeks to come. So everything is sort of playing the way that it should. I think we're a little early.
Yeah,
we are definitely
early.
But
it looks like that's what's going on.
This is probably all of our favorite time of year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Travis may like it a little later because I know he's so big into the tarpon thing, but most guys, inshore guys, this is our favorite time.
Mm-hmm.
Or we're a little early, but still, we're this is the moments we live for as fishermen. But there's a downside to that, because when these fish go in transition, like I missed a couple days fishing.
Yeah.
And when I come back, where I had a decent bite, I go today, and it's
gone.
like, where are they?
Well, that's why you got to watch our show.
Well, yeah, no. I should have watched. But so if you're out there fishing which I'm sure we have a lot of weekenders, if you spank them on Sunday and you go back the following Saturday and they're not there, hey, welcome to the club.
Yeah.
Those fish right now, they are in transition. They probably won't be far. You just have to find the next little deep spot or turn in the river or whatever, and you'll find them. But yeah, I noticed that today we went south and fished and did real good to start, and then I come back to the river and fish that I've been catching in the river, throw a bat full of chum out there and get 15 pops.
Mm-hmm.
Throw a bat full of chum out there today and get 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And we had good tide today. The tide today was, today was the day, and I know Travis had this day yesterday, and probably for the last 4 or 5 days. If you want that 100 snook day, now's the time. That's can be done.
If you want to do it, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to be catching a bunch of huge fish doing this, but 100 snook days right now shouldn't be an issue. But if you find those fish, or if you don't find the fish you've been catching, they're still somewhere close. Don't get frustrated because they are in transition. Well, and that's just what you're talking about.
Yep.
Some of these tides, they're moving out with the warmer water. They're moving out, and when they do collide with the bait, see, we're making them collide with bait.
Right.
But when they get out there and naturally collide with bait,
they want to plant roots and be in that area. I think that goes with I'm just sitting here thinking about, as you're talking, Rick, kind of the last couple months and what we've been talking about, because we've dealt with some cold temperatures, and we've been saying, hey, move in these stages. Now we really need to get up in those canals and creeks and river systems, and we've been talking about how much further you need to go in and what you need to be looking for, kind of step by step. And, I would say for somebody who's fishing once every couple of weeks or once every week, and maybe the last time they went, that's what they did. It's just regress.
That's where time on the water, and experience, and it,
hey, Jace.
with the seasons, it takes years of experience.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can go back in my memory 20 years ago, 25 years ago, and when I first started trying to figure these things out. And that's when I started trying to put a playbook together of figuring out this transition. So today, when I got to where they weren't eating, I made one move and caught fish.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, sometimes I make 2 moves or 3 moves, depending on how long it's been since I've been on the water or whatever. But you'll learn in that transition where they go, and it works just the same in the fall when they start packing up and coming in. You'll find these fish stacked up, and you may go back. You may whack them one day, and you go back. The next week they're not there. Well, they've gone farther up the river in the fall, and just over time you kind of watch this pattern, and you know where they're going, and
right.
You definitely know where they're not going. So
it definitely takes a full year, and that goes with any area. All of us have grown up fishing Tampa Bay, but myself and Jason have been able to go and travel for redfish tournaments and fish, say, Louisiana and even the Panhandle and, South Florida and such. And it always takes at least a full year to even see the changes in right. I would say the area that you're fishing. Forget the fish,
right.
But the tides and the water clarity and the grass
mm-hmm.
growth and et cetera, et cetera. I was talking to some guys, I think it was last year I had some clients, and I said, in the summertime, you wouldn't believe it, but out here there's tons of grass.
Mm-hmm.
They goes, what do you mean? Well, I go, in 3 or 4 months, this is going to be full of grass. In the wintertime, it dies off, and it was coming off. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. We had a pretty rough winter, and it had killed a bunch of grass in this area that we were fishing. And come summertime, the grass was back, the fish were back.
Right.
And it was a trout area that I was fishing for trout. And so it happens every year. It thins out, and then it comes back. But it's those little things where you fished
and
year
pay
after
attention
year.
to them. A lot of people just go to a spot and fish, and if they're not there,
just keep it moving.
But know why they're not there.
Yeah.
So next year, or if the weather swings back, see if we get cold weather in 2 weeks, those fish are going to start migrating back the other direction.
And let me tell you what, last year, if you guys remember, we had a late cold front. I think it was actually 2.
Yeah.
They were mid-March. Or
in early April.
Beginning mid-March, and we had a cold front come in that was pretty substantial. I mean, we couldn't even get whitebait.
Right.
Right in the middle of the spring run, the snook fishing shut down for a week and a half or so. Fish kind of went crazy. But, that's what stability will do for you too.
Yeah.
And so, the more stable the environment stays and the weather, the more stable the fishing will stay. Unfortunately, we know coming into the next few months we're going to have some wind. We're going to start adding rain into this. Then we're going to have to start worrying about fresh water. Where's the fresh water dumping out of the river systems? And so it all changes. There's not any one, period of, say, over a couple weeks.
But that's the attraction.
Where you don't have to start tweaking
if it never changes,
what you're doing.
Get boring fast.
It would get boring. If you caught a fish on every cast, fishing would be no fun.
Sure.
That's the truth.
I mean, it would. The attraction is the hunt.
The pursuit.
No doubt.
Definitely.
Well, scroll through. Let's see if we
got
any
a few questions.
Guys.
There's something we need to bring up that Justin mentioned that I just caught wind of, and I believe it's official. I haven't really been on my phone today.
100%.
Yep.
That is great.
And it starts Friday, right?
Yeah.
And so
new trout regulation.
What we'll try to do is we'll try to find this information, actually get it shared on the page. But as of right now, I do believe that to be true, and from what I've heard when I walked in the shop today, it's Friday.
100%.
I love hearing that.
Yeah, so I think that's great.
It's basically the entire, from what I understand and what I read, I got the email this morning, and it's the entire region right now that's temporary closure, catch and release, for redfish and snook. And so that region now will you only be able to keep trout up to 20, nothing over 20 inches.
Yeah.
So that one trout that you could keep over 20, now he's out of the picture.
Good for him.
At least until May, when they reevaluate the entire redfish and snook situation. Trout will be evaluated in with that, and hopefully some, new regulation or new, program to try to regulate.
If you need time to think,
fish.
it's better to at least close the wound up. I mean, if there is a problem with it and you don't know yet, let's
err on the side of caution.
Err on the side of caution. There you go. We had a question about bait up north from Andy. Andy, help me out with some specifics. I don't know if you're talking about like Upper Tampa Bay, or further north Anclote area. So let me know.
Andy's a Gandy guy, so he'd be right up your
Andy
your
from
alley.
Gandy. Yes, there's definitely bait, buddy. I can tell you that it's not right there at Gandy where I found it. I'm either going a little bit north, checking those bridges, or heading a little bit further south. So it is there, though. People are getting it. It's still in deep water. Nothing on the flats to my knowledge. Actually, let me back up. I was out Sunday, and I did see bait on the flats. It was just really small. I don't think it's anything you want to fish with, pal. So I'd stay in the deeper water. You can get some good bait. Bait in the bay near Apollo Beach yet, Jeff Simpson.
Jason and I bounced some markers the other day, and we saw bait on just about every marker we bounced, but it wasn't wadded up.
Right.
It was just
all spread out.
Yeah.
The biggest problem, and this happens every year as well, is you get around these full moons, you get clear water mixed in, because we're coming out of winter to that early spring before the water starts getting a little bit murkier, and you've got clear water, bait showing up, heavy tide, strong tides, and it's just can be a terrible situation to catch bait, especially when you've got an hour and a half in the morning to try to secure enough bait for 2 trips in some cases. So there's bait around, but what I've found is it can be hit or miss. Like, you can pull up to a marker 20 minutes before daylight and there not be a piece of bait on it, and 30 minutes after the sun comes up, it's loaded, and this bait's just moving in and out off of this structure. And I think a lot of it has to do with this water clarity, me personally, because we were marking bait on a certain area that was like 25 yards off the marker. And I mean, it was 10 foot of bait. And you get up next to the structure and there wasn't a piece of bait around, but you could chum and bring that bait to you, and get enough bait. But the tide was the X factor and all that to be able to, this bait's still deep, guys. So what I would say, if people are looking for bait, I'll throw one, bone out there, is look at the deepest markers first.
Sure.
Go to the deeper markers, that 20 to 25 foot range, and start there and work your way in shallow, because the bait will be more abundant out of the channels in the deeper water than it will be up shallow, at least in our area from what I've seen.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, I caught bait with Jason last Thursday, and I told him I was going to say this. My gosh, Travis, I've caught bait with you so many times. Jason is so demanding. Chum it there. No, a little farther to the left.
I'm guilty of that too.
To the left.
Yeah.
You got to know you're throwing it a little closer to the marker. No, it's too close to the marker. Make a big ball of bait or a chum and throw it out there. Try to break it up a little bit.
Take your shoes off.
If you got any dry bait,
turn your shirt inside out.
I mean, I'm like, dude.
Yeah. I know I'm guilty of that
Would
too.
Would you just tell me where you want it and how to do it, and I'm going to throw it there? Because I'm chumming the way I chum when I'm throwing the net.
Yeah.
And man,
how much chum did you get on the boat?
We got a lot on the boat.
Rick's a dirty chummer. Rick is a dirty chummer.
Yeah. I know.
He's a dirty chummer.
I am a dirty chummer.
We
caught bait one time, and Travis said, "Good Lord!" He goes, "Did you get any in the water?"
Yeah, I know. I felt like that today myself, man. That freaking
I get out there with Rick. I remember this too. I get out there with Rick, and it's blowing. A lot of times if we go partner up for bait, odds are the weather's
bad.
Foul,
Yeah.
Baby boat don't like going out in the big.
So we get out there. I mean, it's probably blowing a good 15 or so. We get out there and Rick just opens the top of the chum and just there it is, and just start. I mean, it's just dust.
Yeah,
it's dust from Africa coming over.
Yeah,
and I'm like, go to the bow, Rick. No, bad idea. I mean, it's just
all over
dust storm, fairy dust everywhere. I'm like, Rick, a little water, little water, baby.
Yeah.
But no, you got to get it on the surface. You got to bring them up.
My boat was covered. My bottom machine was covered. The screen, everything today. Yeah, it was great.
Well, Travis, he had his back to me most of the time there. And finally, we got done, and we were starting to put things away. And he goes, "My gosh!" I said, "What?" He goes, "Did you get any in the water?"
Getting a little extra chum for tomorrow. Oh man, good stories. Well, anyways, guys, we're coming to that time where we need to probably take a little break, pay a few bills. But when we get back, we're gonna have some trivia.
Yeah, man.
And we'll be talking some more fishing. If you got any questions, fire them off. In the meantime, hang tight, and we'll be right back, guys. You're watching Tampa Fishing Outfitters Live Fishing Report. All right, guys, welcome back. Tampa Fishing Outfitters Live Fishing Report. Myself, Captain Travis, Captain James, Captain Rick, in the studios talking a little fishing.
Before I get to the trivia question, Manny says, Rick, just put it in the live well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got a story about that.
Just put what in the live well?
I'm assuming chum.
Oh.
No guy down in Bradenton did a little tarpon fishing with him years ago, and he was making chum with, menhaden oil, and just he had a homemade concoction of this stuff.
Sounds like Brady.
It wasn't Brady. No, it wasn't Brady. This guy actually is
a little bit of resin.
But
pancake syrup.
Pancake syrup.
He
Jemima.
Said, he said, I got to thinking. He said that menhaden oil, that stuff really works good. And just what Manny said. He said, man, I got the idea. I'm just going to put some menhaden oil in a live well.
Ooh.
And then just as the water pumps in, let it flow out. And he says, because it was drawing fish. So he dumped, I don't know how much he dumped, a half a quart, which don't seem like much.
Mm-hmm.
He said it was weeks that the when it got in there, that stuff just stuck to the sides, real slippery to the sides.
Ooh.
He said I couldn't get it out. He said I couldn't get it out. I mean, what stayed
so
on
were the baits like running into the side of the well trying to eat it, or what?
Well, they're slicked up. It's all slicked up,
dude. Hey,
less bait abrasion on the edges.
It could be.
But what was floating overflowed. But he said as it would splash and get on the side of the live well, he said that was a pain to get out of that.
That's funny, man. I know a buddy. Not to get way off subject, but he uses macerator pumps, and he'll chum for sharks with. He'll put like cut bait. He'll cut a bunch of bait in there, and then fill his live well up. Turn the macerator pump on, and pump it all out because it it sucks from the live well, and it's like basically like a daggum. What's in your sink?
Yeah. Garbage disposal.
Garbage disposal.
Yeah.
Send it right out the back. That was kind of a neat idea, but messy and stinky. But anyway, guys. Well, Rick, you got some trivia for us tonight.
I got a trivia.
So
we got Blue Water's hooking them up, right?
Blue Water shirt.
Blue Water gear.
Blue Water shirt.
And I'll answer Jace real quick. Do y'all ever get burnt out on fishing? And I can tell you, I have fished myself one time in 6 years. I love taking people fishing.
Yeah.
But I don't want to fish. Not here.
I do. I still enjoy fish. I still enjoy.
Other places, yes. On vacation, yes. Love freshwater fishing. Am I going to go try to catch a redfish on my day off? Not ever going to happen.
Unless I call him and say, "Hey, man, let's go for a ride."
Well, we did do that. But that really wasn't a fishing trip. We just
that was a good fun trip.
But all right,
here we go.
Here's the trivia. What is a kipper?
What is a kipper?
Spell that.
Kipper.
What is a kipper? All right, first to get this right, we got a Blue Water gear shirt.
Blue Water gear shirt. What is a kipper?
Which we hooked Jace up. And while we're waiting on some answers, guys, I'll answer Jace's question. I really don't. I still like to spend my days, if I don't have anything going on with my kids or Especially weekdays. I don't really get on weekends for fun, but I still enjoy it. What I enjoy now is I like breaking my routine.
Right.
I've got this routine of tracking down snook, redfish, trout.
Well,
so
we fished here a while back, but that really wasn't a fishing trip. There was an agenda on that.
Yeah, it was kind of purpose. There we go.
That's
warm.
That's not technically
getting
correct.
warm.
Male spawning salmon.
warm.
I don't think that's it.
Nope.
So to answer your question, Jace, I don't, but I do get in these periods where I need to go and do something different. I need to go make an offshore run. I need to go fly fishing. I need to go bass fishing. I need to go wading. What I don't want to do is get in my boat and go catch bait and chum up snook and redfish a whole lot anymore. But what Rick said is I've really developed a passion for really wanting people's trips to be epic and memorable, and that is really exciting.
Not a male salmon.
I can tell you that.
Well, I mean, some of these answers could be right, but it's. Yeah, but you got to be more specific about the herring.
We want a specific answer.
It's specific.
Them Google
Specific.
fingers were going,
Say that
though.
10
Specific.
You know what? Those Google fingers were
Specific?
going, though.
Specific.
What are y'all using for him? Do you have arrow? Oh, chum.
Yeah.
Chum. That's supposed to be chum. I'm guessing, right, Steven? For chum, I mean, I feel like the more, every day I get less and less complicated with the chum.
Oh, dude.
Chum and water.
Straight out of the bag.
Yep.
Purina fish, food, and water.
It will work.
On the flat sometimes, especially where I'm at.
You're thinking right, Justin. But
now you're getting specific, Justin.
That's the kind of specific we're looking for, but it's not salted herring. Nope, not a whole herring.
Getting warm.
I got this straight from the computer.
Herring split in a butterfly fashion head to Matt,
Nope.
getting specific.
Whoa. Very specific, but that's not what the computer said.
So close, James. Getting so close.
Put them together,
man.
James.
Come on, that last little piece.
It's for a shirt.
Oh, no.
Thread and herring. Threadfin herring, nope.
Man.
Gosh.
Oh.
Man, we're like Wheel of Fortune or Jeopardy. Like
we're getting the
really have to be
the right
specific.
2 words, but they're not put together.
Yeah, you got to, I mean.
Come on, we got this Blue Water Gear shirt on the line, guys. Could we be wrong? Because at this point, Google should have,
Nope.
done.
Well, Rick's been pretty creative. I mean, he's got a source for these now, right?
No.
Oh, you're not going to the source. Okay.
There you go. Matt's got it.
Matt Gatos again. He's a two-time winner.
Oh.
You're a two-time winner, brother.
Smoked herring. Sorry, James. You're just a bit outside.
James, hey, good answer, buddy. Matt, hit us up, dude, and let us know what size shirt you'd want. We'll make sure that Jason Prieto gets in contact and gets that all squared away for you. But chum question, guys. So what's the chum recipe here of choice?
For now, for whitebait, I do have a little bit of variation. So for whitebait, I'm strictly a Purina fish food water guy.
Yep.
All right. But there are certain times of the year that I'll go target pinfish, and when I want to net pinfish up, the traditional tropical fish food with water will work.
Mm-hmm.
But if you use a can of Jack Mac or some other, even if you have small fry bait, I've done this where I've caught a bunch of small white bait, like say I'm snapper fishing in the summer or something, and I want some grouper baits, some bigger pinfish. You can actually take those small white baits and crunch a bunch of them up in your hand and just start throwing them out, and the pinfish will come up and you can net the pinfish. So for pinfish, I do put a little bit of different, ingredients in there to try to attract the
I think Michelle's
the pinfish.
after the shirt.
But for whitebait, it's definitely just Purina fish food. Now, I do buy the 45 over the 30 or 35 or whatever it is mix. I don't know if it makes a whole lot of difference, but for the extra couple bucks, I go for it.
Yeah.
I do know that it's a little bit more oily in your hand.
Yeah, and I personally like that. So I'm still a believer in the menhaden oil. I don't use a lot, but I feel like there's times, and I've seen it, how we are with bait guys, especially when it's on the flats. We're right next to each other a lot of times. I've seen where And this could be position or boat position, but I'm convinced that there's times where I need that menhaden oil in there, and I'm getting that slick going.
I agree.
So I always keep it. It's always in my boat. I always keep it, especially since TFO started selling in the smaller ones. Now I don't have to get a gallon jug.
Yeah.
I can just get the little squirt bottle.
Yeah.
It makes it so much easier. So
it definitely, especially I would say definitely on a flat.
Yeah.
I would see the oil, adding the oil to it being a little more beneficial. I tell you one place that I can say that we do use it, and it seems to make a difference, is catching whitebait on the flats down in Charlotte Harbor.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of times where you have really wide open flats, and the bait's just kind of scattered out in small little pods.
Yeah.
And you can get in there, start chumming over a grass flat. I mean, you'll start seeing the bait show up, but then all of a sudden, I mean, you'll start seeing it flip in your slick and work right towards your boat. And I can definitely say that I think that's attributed to having that extra oil in there.
Yep.
But outside of that, for like the markers and stuff, especially in heavy current, I don't think it's as beneficial.
No, it's gone so fast,
I mean, so I just, I roll with the big bag of Purina fish food, and we let it rip. Matter of fact, I went and picked up 2 bags today because I ran out. But
yeah, I had to grab some.
And some days you don't need it, some days you do.
Who was that asked that? Because I think we're really talking about how simple we keep it, and we keep a few things, Jack Mac and menhaden oil around, and I think those are pretty easy things to understand when you want to use it. Add Jack Mac if you want pinfish. If you're on the flats, maybe add the menhaden oil. But I think where we really start to maybe get technical with our chum, and the only thing we get technical with is maybe the water ratio, like the thickness of that chum or how moist it is compared to being really dry. In certain situations. Do I need that chum to sink? Am I trying to bring bait to the surface? So that's kind of the other thing I'd say is maybe a little more technical for me.
Yeah, I mean, and, we kind of joked around with Rick talking about, not putting a lot of water in it. I mean, Rick does like to use it a lot drier than a lot of people.
Mostly on the flats do I use a lot of dry.
And there's a reason for that, I know. Yeah. But you do use it a little bit.
And at the bridge when bait's spooky.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that you can put a sheen of that dry stuff across the top, and it gives you just that little extra time. They don't notice the net quite as fast.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So. But what I was gonna follow up with, and we can kind of lead off of the whole chum thing here, but probably the most important thing when it comes to catching bait, specifically using chum, is where to throw your chum in the water. And this is one thing I will kind of agree with Jason when you were talking the other day. Is, I mean, if you've got a heavy.
Oh, so Rick was doing it all wrong.
Well, no, but I'm just saying.
I'm telling you, he's like 2 foot farther to the left.
Well, and there's days where, like
he was like your caddy.
I'll go chum on the front of my boat, like up on the bow.
And then you got to run back and throw.
And then run back and throw on the back, or vice versa.
Oh, Prieto's on.
Or chum at the front, run back and keep looking at my machine.
Yeah.
And then when I see it on my sounder, run up to the front and throw my net off the bow and come down at the same rate as that, chum was. And
100%.
so you literally have to drive the chum. You have to drive the bait to where you want it with the chum, but then you have to put it where you want it so you can get your net on it.
On top of it.
So it's sort of when you really try to, especially on the markers, some of that can make the difference in whether or not you get bait or you don't get bait.
Yeah.
Because I'll see guys, and here's the example, goes up to the marker, ties off to the marker, starts throwing chum out the back of his boat. Mm-hmm. He actually pulls the bait off the marker because the tide's going out or coming in, and the bait goes and sits down, 20 yards off the marker where his chum's at.
Well, I actually like that. If I see that, because you can run up behind and throw. But
just things to consider, guys. Yeah. And this time of year, use your machine. You're not going to see a ton of bait on the surface.
No.
That's another thing. I see guys come up, look, and they leave.
What was that about smaller bags?
Yeah, Steven, you can definitely get it in small. Well, I don't know that you can get it in the Purina packaging, but I know Tampa Fishing Outfitter sells it in a 20-pound 5-gallon bucket and a 5-pound freezer bag. And then I think that I think a lot of local bait shops like Apollo Beach and Gandy, I think they're starting to go to it.
Yeah, so people that are asking, the Ace Hardware and Apollo Beach are up on Big Bend. They sell it there. You can pull in and get it. Any of the bait shops, like you said, or if you're out in like Lakeland or
a feed store,
that's going to be your biggest or your best resource to go get a bulk bag of chum. And if you just tell them Purina tropical fish food, most of them know exactly what it is, and they can point you in the right direction.
If you're in the shop every so often in TFO, then ask anybody behind the counter, and they'll be able to get it for you. They'll be able to give you advice on it, show you menhaden oil, kind of point you in the right direction too on how you're going to use it.
Keep it in a cooler, dry area, and the 50-pound bag will almost fit perfectly in 2 5-gallon buckets. If you buy 2 5-gallon buckets with lids, you can get one bag, put it in those 2 5-gallon buckets, and roll from there. I keep mine now in one of those big chlorine buckets with the lid on it, the screw lid. It's like a 8-gallon or whatever it is, the big buckets with the chlorine tabs.
Yeah, that's the one that come from the fish farm?
Right.
Will a whole bag
it'll hold one whole bag.
Will it really?
To the rim. Yep.
Good to know.
It'll hold one whole bag to the rim, and you can
twist
screw
the lid on.
Yep, and I keep that at my dock. So I've always got, well,
that's good to
I keep it around. My chum's going to come up missing now.
Yeah, your chum's gone.
Everybody thought it was a trash can.
Yeah. What was the other question we saw in here? Oh, there wasn't one.
Yeah, and if you do keep it in Ziploc bags, you're right, Travis, the bugs will eat through it.
Yep.
If you keep it in Ziploc bags on the back porch or in the garage, bugs will eat through the Ziploc bag. So you're better off in like a Tupperware container or a 5-gallon bucket, something that is going to keep those bugs out of that, because they will get in it.
Sure will.
So,
I know where I'm going to re-up on chum. See,
stay off my dock, Ty.
You know what? Speaking of picking up something that somebody, hey guys, I know I shared it earlier. One of our captain buddies, Kevin Overstreet, he forgot his rods at the Gandy boat ramp today at the boat wash.
Ouch.
Showed up like a half hour later and couldn't find him. So hopefully somebody picked him up for him. But if you found some combos all together at the Gandy boat ramp, they're Captain Kevin Overstreet. If you don't know who he is, you can reach out to one of us so we can get in touch with him. But he surely would like to get those back.
Absolutely, guys. Do the right thing. If you did find those, man, don't be that guy.
Yeah. His clients for tomorrow would really appreciate it, too.
Yeah, don't be that guy, man. Return them. But
vacuum seal it. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Vacuum seal it. But, well, guys, we're about halfway through here. And, you know, one of the things that we were talking about today was this early springtime fishing. We kind of talked about our bait situation, which is really starting to get better and better every day. The fishing is getting better and better every day. We're coming off this full moon that I think is really going to set things up even further. Like we were talking about, kind of recap, we were seeing these fish move out into their springtime areas. But the one thing that I've noticed over the last 2 weeks is the redfish bite. I don't know if you guys have been seeing it, Rick. I know some of the areas you've been fishing, you probably haven't been catching a lot of reds.
We lost redfish today, but it was just, I mean, we hooked him by mistake. I mean,
but
he wasn't trying to
I had some guys out the other day, and they wanted to go catch some redfish, and we caught a handful. I think we caught 4. But the amount that I saw was really good. Now, I didn't see any schools of fish, but I did see areas and shorelines that were holding, 10, 15, 20 fish on them. And they were good fish, slot and upper slot, over slot fish. So that was good to see. I mean, and of course the juveniles are around. But the reason I say that is we're coming into that spring bite. Last year our redfish was kind of off. And I'd love if somebody, starts to see some of these bigger schools. It'd be nice to know because, I really hope that we have a good spring this year.
Yeah.
Last year's spring for redfish was pretty weak. And what I see now, I didn't see last year.
Right.
So I'm hoping that these resident schools that we normally have start to show up.
I definitely agree with you there. I mean, like you're seeing it, the numbers of fish I'm seeing, they're never really tightly knit. And, when I've been taking folks red fishing for parts of these trips, we're not just going to a certain spot where they're staging up. What I'm finding is they're just in these small groups, like you said, 5 to 15, maybe up to 20 fish in moving, but they're just moving. They're on the hunt, man. They're just working up and down these shorelines. So we're finding them. I'm not by any means crushing redfish, but we're giving ourselves opportunities every day. really just setting up on the shorelines. I'm kind of waiting for the tide to get a little bit higher and just going to where I've seen them moving around and doing the thing there. And with the water so clear, you know if there's fish. I mean, you don't really have to wonder or really chum to figure it out. I mean, they know.
I will say that the fish that we've been catching, some of the areas are just areas that I traditionally would fish in the spring, and we've been checking them. And this is under the trees, under the bushes fishing. In these deeper areas, these fish are working their way in off these flats. Once that water comes up, and they're tucking up under the trees instantly in these areas. And that's where we've been getting most of these fish. On the outsides of the islands, there's fish just peppered from, the north stretch of the bay all the way to the Skyway Bridge. I mean, they're just peppered along in there. Certain areas are going to hold more than others, but I would expect in the next at least 2 moons to start seeing those fish start to wad up a little bit as the bait, kind of starts falling in. So that's something I'm looking forward to.
And with this water being so clear and you're able to see them, I'll tell you the best red fishing day I've had in the last couple of weeks was actually sometime last week after a trip that ended, and I didn't have anything to do. I tied on some jigs and some paddle tails and met somebody at the ramp, and I mean, whack those fish moving up and down the shoreline. Better than I could with white bait, better than I could with shrimp.
That's exactly what I was going to say. You're right, man. 100%. I took some guys out. Now these weren't solid stud redfish, but I had a group of guys that I fished 3 days in a row. Matter of fact, it was the day that you guys covered on the show last week.
Yep.
We ended up having some bad weather come in that morning on their 3rd day, and we opted to go throw artificials in the afternoon through the evening once the rain cleared. And we went out, and I caught more redfish that day than I had caught probably in the last month and a half, probably 2 months.
Yep.
Now, these were juvenile redfish. The biggest one might have been, 23 inches, 22 inches. But I think we ended up with like 10 or 11 redfish.
Yeah.
And all thrown artificials post-cold, the day of the cold front post.
Right.
And these fish were still eating. We caught snook, redfish, trout, flounder, some ladyfish, a jack.
I think it's. I think it has
just being able to cover
the ground.
all that area.
That's what it was for me. I mean, it was simple. I'm able to get 1 or 2 here, here and there because we're working the area that they're working. But when you get on the trolling motor or wade or in a kayak, whatever you are, and you're able to really cover a shoreline from one end to the other, I mean, it'd be hard not to put a redfish in the boat with what I'm seeing.
Right.
So just a heads up, just a tip is if that's really what you're after, and if you told me I need to go catch a redfish right now, forget bait, forget everything, and just give me a couple paddle tails and just go work shorelines. Definitely.
Cut bait's an alternative too.
Yeah.
I know Jason was using quite a bit of cut bait over the last few weeks with some of the bigger Spanish sardines that we had in. That was one of his go-tos. I've always been a big live bait guy. Rick, you know that. I always like those horse baits. It just fits my style of fishing and the areas that I fish and the techniques that I use to fish. So I still am going after those bigger, white baits. That's what I want. But there's been a lot of ladyfish around. There's been a lot of mullet around. I don't know if you guys noticed that too, but those mullet have really started to fall back into the flats. And if you're not a live bait guy or you don't throw the cast net, you can take those jigs, go out, catch a few ladyfish, and with these higher tides that we're having in the afternoons, you can get up under some of these tree lines and you'll get some of these bigger snook, which is one of the things that I wanted to talk about before we left the show tonight is the amount of big snook that I've seen. Now, this is like in the last 2 weeks, and I have seen 3 or 4 good pods of fish that there ain't one in there that's under 35 inches.
Yeah.
And they're moving around in schools of about, 7, 8 fish, and they're just kind of working their way around, and that is something that I'm looking forward to in the next 2 weeks. We've been throwing some live bait at them, throwing it around them. They're right in there with those, juvenile and adolescent snook, and they won't take a bait.
Yeah.
Or they can't get to a bait.
Right. They're not ready to work that hard.
So, in saying the whole cut bait thing, my trip's coming up over the next few days. We're gonna go catch some ladyfish, and we're gonna see if we can't go sit in some spots and maybe get a couple big snook with some of my regular clients. Now is the time of year where you can get one of those tank snooks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that are just stupid. So, if you know of an area that normally holds big snook, springtime snook, go check it out.
I went and checked one Sunday. I took my buddy Brian Major and I. We took our sons out. They're the same age and they like to do everything together. Yeah, they have such a good time.
That was good.
Yeah, it's good, man.
So we're rolling up to this area where I think they could be, and we're about to go in. To be honest with you, I was ready to kind of get in and get ready for the next week of trips, and but I'm thinking, let me just stop this one spot and check it on the way, and it's kind of out of the way. I got to go way back in there, and boom, I pull up, and I said, "Are those snook?" Because he's up on the bow, I'm at the console in my cockpit, and I'm like, "Are those snook?" And he's like, "Yes." All right, power pulls down, stay as far away as could.
Drop the hook.
I mean, we got him to eat, so we turned him on. It took about 15 minutes, and then the fury began. And the mission is to get our kids to eat, to get those. And both of these boys had fish on that were over 40 inches. Neither got to the boat.
Yeah.
I would never expect them to, but it was pretty intense watching them. He's got his son trying to coach him. I'm trying to coach mine. We got a couple bigger ones that were like in that 33, 34 after things settled down a little bit. But you're right, man. I looked up there and I said, are those like trees, logs, or?
And they just came out of nowhere.
Yep.
I mean, I fished
Both
an
of
area.
y'all had good picks this week. That was an awesome pick.
Oh, that's right. Your daughter's first, right?
Yeah.
Nice,
We took her out on Sunday, and we did a little family trip. One of my regular clients decided that they needed to reschedule because of some other family coming in town. So I said, you know what? I called my mom and dad. I called my wife. I said, hey, I'm not fishing today. This afternoon. Let's
dance.
Let's go get after it. And it actually worked out. I mean, because I've done that quite a few times and called dad. Hey, and I'm cutting the grass. I'm washing the truck. And it actually worked out. And so I got them out for a few hours, and it was awesome, man. Like I said, it wasn't the fish. We caught some great fish. Dad missed a tankopotamus of a snook that it just he had no shot. I mean, it was just these fish were laying up in the trees. He got smoked. Yeah. We saw him in the tower, and he ended up getting one to eat, and it just.
But the picture of Tegan, that fish, man, you got to get that thing blown up and stuck on the wall. That was the biggest smile you ever.
Well, it was like
Rick is out here e-scouting. That's great.
E-scout, yeah.
All right, that's comment of the night.
What does that
Steve?
Mean?
Christy, yes, there's definitely still restrictions on snook and reds for the time being.
I see it on Facebook. All right, I'm not like stalking nobody.
He's out there looking at backgrounds.
I see. Yeah. I couldn't tell where you were at, but I know where you were at.
Yeah.
No, I ain't doing that.
That was a good
I'll
one,
tell
Steve.
you know me.
Yeah.
Pull in next to me, baby.
I hear you, Steven. That's good.
Good deal. Yeah, it's always good, man, to get those kids out there on some fish.
It is, man. It was awesome.
Yeah.
If anybody on here wants to be Facebook friends, and if you post a lot of pictures, let me know.
Yeah, especially if you fish in the South Shore.
Rick knows this area well.
Make sure to get all the backgrounds in there.
Yes, please.
Yep, that's so
Good
funny.
stuff. But no, you're right, man. And to kind of follow up with that, there's a lot of guys out there, a lot of families out there, husband, wives that fish. If you do want to take your kids out, I mean, don't miss the next 2-3 weeks.
Right.
Because now is the time where, the weather's nice. You get a little breeze. It's not super hot yet. It's not super muggy, humid.
Perfect.
Now is the time to get those folks out, or get your kids out, or get your grandma, your grandpa, some of the older folks out that are a little bit, less resilient to the heat. Get them out and do some fishing right now. The fishing has been pretty easy. I'm not going to say you're always going to catch a trophy fish.
Sure.
I'm not going to say it's always going to be epic. But I will say that if you go out now.
It'd be epic if one of my grandparents caught one.
Well, Rick, so you can't invite your grandparents,
right.
okay? So that wasn't for you.
Okay.
Rick. But you can invite your daughter.
I could.
Yeah.
Yes.
But anyway, guys, so if you have some young children that like to get out and do some fishing, or maybe you're trying to introduce them to fishing, pick a calm day, get them out, get in the backcountry. The fishing can be pretty good this time of year.
In the black country, everything's so full of life right now that should you run into a moment where you're struggling and the bait's not happening, I mean, the dolphins are out there,
right.
the mullets jumping, there's stingrays everywhere. Get the kid up on the bow of the boat and just let them absorb, you know, what it is to be out there. And trust me, I have kids. I've got 2. They both fish. I know how it can be, like when the bite's not good. But right now, like you said, not only is the bite good, not only is the weather good, but there's a lot of life and there's a lot of things going on that just being out there and exposing them to them this time of year versus mid-June, and trying to go snook fishing, this can really instill, a love of fishing right now.
Like I said, it's the action. You know, when you get on a good bite, us taking out kids, I don't want to say for a living. I don't take out kids for a living, but it comes with the job. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you that over the last, several trips, I've had some young kids.
Me too.
And it's as good as it gets with young kids, because the fishing, the fish eat close to the boat. They don't have to cast very far. The fish are still eating corks really good, so they can see the whole thing go down.
Literally eating the corks sometimes.
Yeah. So fishing is good, guys. Weather has been pretty decent. I think we've got a nice forecast coming through the rest of the week here till we see you guys again. So do yourself a favor and get out and do a little bit of fishing.
Take a kid fishing.
And if you're looking to book a charter, now's a good time to get in. I know my schedule's pretty well packed up, but I've got some patchy stuff in between. Rick and James are probably both the same. But come in the next few months, guys, I know a lot of us are going to be pretty well booked up. So if you're looking to get out and do some snook fishing with a professional fishing guide, now's the time to go ahead and do your research and call a few guys and pick a captain that suits your needs.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to get a hold of me, I'd be happy to take you out. My cell phone number is 813-830-3474, or you can visit my website, which is www.fishbyinstinct.com. Rick?
813-601-2900.
Coming soon.
The website's coming soon. We're coming back with a website.
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
Real simple fishing.
I really can't. I check it every day.
RealSimpleFishing.com.
Today, I wake up, and I'd say, is today the day the website's live?
Yes.
Today wasn't.
Coming.
Today wasn't.
Tomorrow
wasn't
could
be.
I haven't had a website in 3 years. I'm a little excited about it.
I am too.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you. You deserve it. Mine's localknowledgefishing.com.
And you deserve a website too.
I got one. Yeah, I was able to get one.
How about that?
It's not the fanciest one out there, but it does a trick. And the phone number is 813-625-2067. Before we sign out, though, why don't we get an update on the O'Brien's Fishing Club activities coming up?
They still got the Battle of the Species going. That's until November 9th. But the next meeting is on the 13th of March, and they have a cookout at E.G. Simmons Park on the 23rd of March.
Heck yeah, busy month for them.
Yeah.
I know at Tampa Fishing Outfitters, we have a spring and fall every year, the bass tournament. I think this one is going to start March 1, but starting Saturday coming up, you can register. It's a free tournament. There are so many prizes.
Right.
I can't even, between Daiwa and Favorite Rods and everybody else that's helping us out, we'll have a full list of sponsors on there. It's a free tournament. If you're an adult, if you're a serious fisherman, if you're a kid, if you've never caught it, this is the tournament for everyone. All right, there's a kids division. But odds are, just by participating, A, you're forcing yourself to get out there and go fishing.
Right.
But B, you're probably going to take something cool home.
Yes, and if we're not, whatever the word I'm looking for, to O'Brien's, if you're in a club and y'all got something going on,
bring it.
Let us know,
yeah.
And we'll promote it out there and try to get some interest in it. They say when you get older you start. I would have never not been able to remember the word I'm looking for years ago. But
it's a couple hours past your bedtime.
No, Rick.
So
yeah, and it's Wednesday.
Almost 8 o'clock.
We're not married to O'Brien, so if you got something, let us know, and
we're non-discriminatory on the fishing club.
We'll throw it out there and try to get some response for you. So anyway, just let us know.
Guys, we appreciate you again joining us for an hour. If you like the show, please like and share it. Follow the page. Next week, same time, same place. Captain Jason will be back with us. Have fun, Snow Princess.
No, he won't.
No,
he won't be back next week.
He won't be back with us.
It's just us
Where's
three next week.
All right,
he's got something going on.
Yeah.
Snow Princess is out again. Guys, Same place, same time.
Affiliated
next week.
Beholden. I'm
Out.
loving this.
See you
That's
guys.
what we come to you for, Steve.